Hey guys, it's Jim Shirley here again, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about this auction that I have going on right now, medicalhealthreference.com, and it's for the sale of this domain. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about in this video is a bullet point that I had here near the top of the seller notes on this domain, and that is, I mentioned simple and easy to outsource content, and I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that because the owner, the person who wins this auction and gets this domain is going to have so much opportunity to go ahead and go get and build an authority site. And I just wanted to talk about this in case you're wondering, okay, if I get this domain, where am I going to get all this content? Do I need to outsource it, to some cheap people, on Freelancer or Elance, to write 100 articles for me, or can I use something like Article Builder or Content Machine to create sort of robotically generated articles or that sort of thing. Those are all possibilities, right? You can, certainly writing content yourself is probably the most valuable if you've got something to say in the medical and health field. But second to that would be outsourcing to a human who knows various subjects and can write good coherent articles. Because I think ultimately with this kind of domain, you don't want to fill it up with a bunch of sort of artificially generated robot content, because I think this is the kind of domain that has the potential to drive a lot of traffic if it's done right, and ultimately make you a great deal of money from advertising and affiliate sales and that sort of thing. But how do you, if outsourcing articles isn't really up your alley or that sort of thing, how can you sort of make content creation a little bit easier? And I said simple and easy to outsource content there, and I'll just show you. I thought I would show you in this video how I would approach starting to add content to this thing. And I use a tool that's called CurationSoft, and I'm just going to open it up here, CurationSoft. Now, I'm not, advocating for them. There's a million different, curation type tools. Some are actual software like this one is, and some are, actually online, like Scoop It, for example, is a possibility, out there. But I use CurationSoft, and what I wanted to show you in this video is just kind of how easy it could be to quote unquote outsource your content for a site that you build on this domain by basically just being a content curator, which basically, curation, all that means is you become the sort of editor at the magazine, and as an example. So you don't actually write articles, you just kind of take all the news and information that's out there, and you kind of pick and choose what to publish on the website. And so what happens with a tool like this is it just integrates directly into like a WordPress blog or a Facebook page or whatever. So let's just assume you build like a WordPress blog with this domain, and you integrate that into CurationSoft. You just basically create an ID, and it kind of logs in as you and makes posts. And then I just want to show you what you can do. So one of the topics that we talked about in the letter here is diabetes. So yeah, right here. So that's just one of the topics I mentioned, and I'm just kind of choosing that randomly here, but I've already kind of done a search here. But let's just say, again, you kind of want to focus in. Let's just pretend we're focusing in on some buyer type keywords and situations, because we want to have some products we can position eventually on this site, and kind of get people who are in that shopping sort of mood, visiting our site, and then helping present them with solutions that they're looking for. So, and that's again just one idea of a way to use this domain. But let's just say, okay, let's say diabetes, how about food solutions or diet solutions? Let's just say that instead of food. And I'm just going to click go. Now, I'm also in Google News here, but I have to say my preference when I'm doing using this CurationSoft to make posts is to first look for videos. So I'm going to choose my source to be YouTube, and it's just going to go out and look for diabetes diet solutions. I've got a bunch of related keywords here that I could also click on and kind of add to my search if I wanted. But so what's going to happen here is I can basically just kind of click on these, and it opens up a browser window, and I can watch these videos and kind of learn about what people are presenting here. But just a quick scroll down makes it really easy for me to see videos, what they've got as a beginning description and that kind of thing. And so I see something here that might be interesting, and I'm just going to go for this tasty solutions. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on Post Builder, and this basically just opens up like a WordPress type window where I can just drag stuff in. And I'm going to go in here. You can just style stuff. You can make it. I've got this window really shrunk, so some of this looks a little funny, but you can make things heading 1 and paragraph and all that. So let's just say diabetes diet solutions as our heading. I'm just going to make this, make sure this is normal. And then basically what you do when you're curating stuff is, instead of just grabbing other people's stuff, you just make a couple comments really quick. And then, so let's just say here that this is still in the wrong font here, so let me just make sure that changes. I've been working on a series for you that will give some solutions for diabetes. Focuses on your diet. Okay, so now I've really kind of customized this, right? I've added my own 2 cents, and that's kind of what you're doing when you're curating stuff. And so the next step for me is basically I just drag one of these over here. Now I have set up my site so that basically what's going to happen is I can just take that video code and it just renders a video right on the WordPress website. That's pretty easy to do using a variety of plugins. I just use the plugin called YouTube, which is free. And then and then I can say stuff like, and you might also consider this interesting article. Okay. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. This stuff's not difficult, right? So let's make that a heading. And then what I can do is I can switch back up to one of these other things like Google News, and grab one of these articles that's just a recent news story published January 22nd. I'm going to delete that because we're going to have a direct link right to the article here, so I don't need the dates and everything. And these are all things I can customize, but I can do things like drag images in here. I can just build these posts. So I guess the point is, with a tool like this, if you just spend 15 minutes a day, you could easily in 30 days have at least 30 posts, articles already up on this domain in a variety of topics. In 60 days you could probably have 60 to 100 posts up there. And really at that point, you've sort of hit that tipping point where Google's no longer thinking of this site or looking at the site and wondering is this going to be another thin, affiliate sales type site, with 12 pages and a bunch of affiliate links, or is this going to be a legitimate site? And you get 100 posts up there, takes you 15 minutes a day for a couple months, and suddenly you're going to get a lot of traffic, a lot of visibility. You're really going to start to build that stuff up, and all along you're just kind of adding in your links as you build these to maybe a ClickBank product or something like that. And you're providing useful information, and you didn't really have to write it or outsource it or use robotic content or anything like that. So these are all extremely legitimate sources of information. You get to review it first, and so that's kind of one of my favorite ways to build up a site. And so I hope that's been useful for you. I'll just kind of minimize this here. And it is really quite easy to sort of outsource content without having to hire freelancers around the world, or buy software to artificially make content for you, or that sort of thing. So thanks a lot for joining me, and pay attention to this auction. We've only got a few days left, and it's starting to heat up a little bit. I've got several watchers. I've had a couple people contact me in the last couple of days about this, and I expect in the last 3 days of this auction that there's going to be quite a bit of bidding. So good luck, and I hope if you have any questions you'll reach out to me. Thanks.